move the storm, it comes good.
At this time, we'll call our workshop to order, and we'll reconvene, and this is the last workshop for the budget, and this is the night where we take straw votes on either adding items to the budget, taking things out of the budget, and discussing further if we have any questions on any particular part of the budget. So, not sure how far we'll get, but we'll get started, and the floor is open to the first person.
Well, I motion we get this vote out of the way. I move we reduce taxes 10%, the money to come from the fund balance. I'm not saying to reduce spending, but I'm saying to reduce tax rate by 10% from what the proposed rate is. Money to come from the fund balance.
Okay, I'll second that. You don't have a second. This is a straw vote.
Well, let's wait a minute now. What is our fund balance now?
Okay, so if we look in our budget book on page 35, that's where you'll find the projected fund balance at the end of the current fiscal year. So I'm projecting at June 30th, 2025, our unassigned fund balance will be $26.7 million, or 35.7% of our annual expenditures. And I'll remind you that your fund balance target policy is 35%.
Well, yeah, and that's just a policy. What we would be doing is changing that policy by the amount of money that would be returned to the taxpayers, which would be about, what, $4 million? So we're talking about taking a $26 million pile of money that's sitting there right now doing nothing, and we're talking about reducing that to a $22 million pile of money that's sitting there doing nothing, with the taxpayers getting the benefit of $4 million that they could use to do whatever they wanted to with. And this is really, if you look at this using government accounting, this is a no expense tax reduction that's really not going to cost anybody anything, but it's going to help the taxpayers.
So, Mr. Chairman, as the finance officer, I would urge you to, if you're going to reduce taxes by 4 cents, then I would urge you to cut programs by the same amount, because, you know, we say it over and over again that you do not ever want to use fund balance or your savings to pay for a recurring expenditure item. Fine to use it for one-time capital, but it works very much like your own personal savings account. If you use your personal savings to fund ongoing living expenses or operating expenses in the county's case, then what are you going to do when that money runs out? So you might as well go ahead and cut the programs now, because we will not recommend that.
I really don't want to be insulting, but when were you elected to set policy?
I'm just giving you my professional opinion about...
Well, the answer is you were not elected to set policy, so I'll ask you one more question. What is the minimum that the state of North Carolina requires that Beaufort County have for a fund balance?
1 month operating capital.
1/8 of our budget, 1/12, that's right, which is about, what, $8 million? So you see, take $8 million from $22 million, you've still got a pile of money that's sitting there doing absolutely nothing that belongs to the taxpayers. And there's no connection out there to reducing spending just because you're reducing taxes. You reduce taxes because you've overtaxed people. And you've got a pile of money sitting out there. And we spent money in the last year simply because we had money piled up. The money that's in the, that went in, what did we put in? $4 million into broadband? Okay, does that money show up in last year's budget, or was that in a special revenue fund that it didn't show up as an actual expenditure?
So that money was ARPA funds. unspent ARPA funds, and we're required by law to set those aside in a special revenue fund. So those funds were placed in a special revenue fund by law.
So that's increased tax spending that really doesn't show up as your taxes. And while we use that money for broadband, there was a lot of other things that that money could have been spent for that would have benefited the people of Beaufort County. And no use in me enumerating what they are, because some of the lists that's come out of what that money was used for is absolutely incredible. One of the things we could have spent it for was to improve our water system, which there's still things out there that need to be done for the water system. There was a lot of other things that we could have used that money for. So what I'm talking about is Beaufort County is sitting here on a pile of money, fat and happy, keeping the taxpayers' money and not giving it back to the rightful owners and the hard-working people who actually paid taxes. Let's keep in mind there is a distinguishment between people who pay taxes in Beaufort County and people who don't pay taxes in Beaufort County. And it's the people that do pay taxes in Beaufort County that will benefit from a 10% tax reduction.
Other comments?
Mr. Richardson, didn't you say one time that, like, if we were pummeled with hurricanes this year, and FEMA's, well, they've already admitted that FEMA's probably not ready for this year's hurricane season, but if you said that, I remember you saying that if we, were to give a tax break and we did not have the money, but we were hit by hurricanes, that we could just raise taxes. Didn't you say that?
No, I didn't say that. What I said was we could go borrow the money in order to bridge the gap. But let me ask you this question. Tell me when we've had a $12 million, let's see, what I say, subtract 8 million from 22 million, 8 from 12, I've got $14 million left. Okay, when have we had a $14 million hit from a hurricane that had to come out of the county's pocket?
I think the west part of the
No,
state
we're
is looking at it.
talking about Beaufort County.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying Mother Nature can do anything she wants, and she did it out in the western part of the state. So I really like the concept of basically a rainy day fund, because we are on the bullseye for hurricanes this year.
Well, tell me this, they had a 36-inch rain out there in mountains, and that's quite a bit different situation than what we have here insofar as the hydrology, the accumulation of water, and flooding. So what would happen here if we had a 36-inch rainfall here? Do you have an idea?
Well, I think the rivers could handle it better than out there, for sure.
Well, we've had a 36-inch rainfall here, 15, 20 years ago when the rain fell in Pitt County and west of us.
Yeah.
Okay, that was hilly country. That was a 36-inch rain. That's why they had all that flooding. What happened with the heavy rains that we had during here at the same time in these flatlands? The answer is in these flatlands is very little. So, you're trying to create a risk and make people think that we need to keep money for something that so far I'm not saying it's impossible, but so far has not happened. So, and plus, we have the ability with our credit rating, if we needed to go borrow emergency funds, we could borrow emergency funds during an emergency. So that's a specious argument. You're going to vote against this tax reduction, I gather. So
How fast could you get money on a loan?
24 hours.
Yeah. I got it.
I guess it would depend on the amount we needed to borrow, whether it needed approval from the LGC. Everything I've ever been taught in my 27 years is that they don't approve money for operations, so I'm not sure that would go over well with them if we had to do that.
Let's back up. When the governor declares an emergency, there's a lot of rules that are put aside and backed up. If we had that kind of an emergency of pure devastation, we could borrow money immediately. There would be people standing in line to loan us money. The governor would authorize that. The LGC would open the floodgates. So you guys are all trying to find a reason not to give money back to legitimate owners that we have taken from them by police power. You know, they didn't give us this money. Nobody came in and volunteered this money. We used the police power of the state of North Carolina to take this money. So why not give it back to the rightful owners?
Anyone else?
Yeah, I would like to speak to the whole idea that FEMA's not going to be able to operate in the hurricane season. That hasn't happened before but one time, and that was last year, and that administration is gone. The whole idea that you have a Trump sign in front of your property, you're not going to get money, the whole idea that these guys aren't working, and they weren't working. A lot of people weren't working for the federal government. That's why we didn't have the services for the last 4 years, and we still went $4 trillion in debt. So Congress is in session. They'll be in session. They can appropriate money just like that if they need to, and they have done that under different administrations. Now, we have a Republican Congress and we have a Republican president. If something happens in North Carolina, we'll get the money. I will bet you $1 million we will get that money, and we'll get it quickly. We'll get it just as quick as we need to. His daughter-in-law's from North Carolina. So I also like to say this. I agree with Hood that the money isn't sitting in these buckets. And the fund balance is different than the other buckets you guys appropriate money for. But if the money is not sitting there in such great quantity, we wouldn't have spent, well, you guys wouldn't have spent $10 million. Well, excuse me, let me back up again. $10,500,000 for a school that we don't need. So I would say give the money back to the people. Let them have 1 year reprise from the taxation we heavily enforce in this county, and let them benefit 1 year. And who knows, they might want to do what I'm going to put forth next if you guys vote this down.
Okay, anyone else? Just a comment. When I ran the first time, I spent some time with the former county manager and finance officer, Tideland, and asked them, because I knew this was very important from a financial standpoint. And their number was 25 to 30%, and I'm not sure whether this policy was done when they were here. It was. So, I mean, it is very important. I mean, we could sit here and argue this all night, but as a former banker, I can tell you it is important to have cash reserve. We vote every time that we get ready to pull something out of the fund balance. And most of the time, it makes sense. Now, you know, whether you're talking about the new school or not, it may not make sense to you guys, but it sure makes sense to a lot of other people in this county. And some of the elected officials, it makes a lot of sense. Okay. Anybody else? If not, we'll take a straw vote. All those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Okay. That fails. All right, you want to make another motion?
Yeah, how does it fail? 3-3 vote?
That's tied.
It's a push, but it comes up again. It comes up again because it failed.
Okay. It just didn't pass. So, okay, I make a motion and in lieu of what the financial officer said, and I do concur, that's probably the best way to do it. Let's cut 10% of spending, all waste, fraud, and abuse here in Beaufort County. It's there. We can do that. If we do that this year, we can do the same thing again next year, and we'll get that tax savings every year. So 10% of would actually be more than what Hood is advising. So I suggest we go from 8 to 10%. I would like to see 10, but if you guys want to wager us down to 8%, I'd be willing to go to 8%. And I'll put that in form of a motion.
You want to add to your motion where to cut it at?
Oh, we just start right over. We got until July 1, really, June 30th to finish. We don't have to do this tonight.
So you don't
we can get started all over again.
You don't want to tell the public where you would cut at?
It's 10% across the board.
10% across the board. We have a huge bureaucratic staff. We put them to work on that.
Hal, I hope the public is hearing this, because we've got first responders in this room and they're asking for additional people, both EMS and plus our law enforcement. But yeah, you can cut it right across the board. Cut it right across the board. So that really makes a lot of sense to people that are living in the city limits of Washington.
Well, let's back up a minute now, Frankie. He said an across the board cut, but at the end of the day, as long as you get the 8% out of the whole budget, you're going to get more of it some places than you are other places. So, you know, don't start saying that we're going to hack something down that we need, because we're not going to do that. We're not irresponsible, believe it or not.
Well, I mean, I've seen the budgets that we worked on in the past. What can you cut out of the DSS budget?
We'll find something. You know, that's not what we're debating, Frankie. We're debating whether or not it is going to be good policy for Beaufort County to try to save the taxpayer some money by cutting out 8% of the spending that has been appropriated in this budget, which is a higher budget than the last budget. So you will find the money somewhere. It doesn't have to be 8% of the sheriff's budget. It doesn't have to be 8% of anybody's budget, for that matter. But there's plenty of fraud, waste, and abuse.
Yeah, so are you guys suggesting 8% instead of 10? I could go to 8%.
I think it's more responsible to go to 8%.
8%. I amend my motion to 8%, and maybe you can vote for it.
You don't have to amend it. You just change the number to 8%. Brian, did you?
If you cut it, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
If you cut it across the board, 8% across the board, it's impossible that you're not going to cut employees. It's impossible that you can go in one department and cut more than you can from another. And to me, that's ludicrous. I mean, why you want to shoot but your employees now? And how you going to determine who you lay off? You're going to have to lay them off. Some of the money you're going to lose from social service. Some of the funds that's matching funds, you're going to lose from social service. It's impossible that you can cut 8% across the board. I can't see it. I can't. The only reason I can see it is a good political move. And that's the only reason I can see it. I mean, I'm going to tell you up front, I'm not going to sit here and lay no employee off.
Well, since you're looking at me, I'll answer. It doesn't have to be across the board. Like Hood said, it can be this department and that department. We can do it piecemeal. We can carry this forth for a few more budget sessions. We all got time. We get paid well enough to be up here. And this is our job to do it. Now, I suggested the same thing back in February. It fell on deaf ears. Probably fall on deaf ears again tonight. But this is a revaluation year. The public wants to see us cut waste, fraud, and abuse. And it's there in Beaufort County. I've seen it. And you guys haven't seen it because you guys vote for it. But I vote against it every year because I see it. So it may be a good political move, but we are a political body. And there are places we can cut. I mean, we don't have to give anything to charities. We actually shouldn't each and every year, because we do not have contracts and we do not perform oversight, active oversight over these charities.
Do you have a list on this fraud?
We're going to make that up after you vote to reduce spending. I mean, you're voting for fraud if you want to keep it going.
I want to see the fraud first.
So you don't see it, we see it. I'm not going to digress in any manner to discuss where the fraud is. We're going to get, I've already given you one example, the charities. We're not supposed to give money to charities. That's the public's money. And you're giving individual, non-governmental agencies money.
Okay.
That's over $1 million.
Okay. Brian?
Yes, sir, just for us, if you could, I understand what Commissioner Deathridge is saying. He's talking about policy differences in funding. I think that's what you mean, policy differences. It's not fraud. If the board decides to send money somewhere, I can assure you that you get an audit. All of y'all are asked every year if you know of any fraud issues. The auditor asked you that privately and directly, and you are to tell them if you do. So I understand that sometimes the word fraud gets thrown around. It's very disconcerting for us when you say fraud, because I don't know of any fraud that's going on. I do know there are policy differences. Y'all have policy differences on where you want to spend money. But to say there's fraud going on, please don't use the word fraud. Please say there are policy differences in how you're spending money, because it's not fraud.
And
Thank you.
I agree with you 100%. Anyone else before we take a vote?
It's a matter of semantics. I see it.
Yeah.
And when if I see it, I see it.
You're responsible. Did you report that with the letter that you got from the auditor?
Not gonna do any good.
I think he's right.
I mean, that's a cop-out.
Well, I've seen you guys do it right here in this meeting, in open session, vote in such a manner that you give away the taxpayers' money when there are other things we can do and should do. I see it all the time.
That gets back to policy difference.
Well, a policy difference.
Policy
okay.
difference.
Well, let's talk
So, let me ask you, I think fraud is usually done poorly by people that are stupid. And to commit fraud is a stupid thing. To tell people you're going to run and be frugal with their money and conservative with their money, as some of you have done, and then not be that way, that is a fraud in itself.
Okay.
Well, let's talk about policy differences that cause fraud. The lack of a forensic accounting for what was going on in Chocowinity sent the signal, guys, it's okay to keep doing what you're doing. And so that was a policy difference that set up fraud and perpetuated it. It also sent the signal to some other fire departments in Beaufort County that it was okay there to steal too, because nobody cared. They weren't going to do an audit. Guess who caught these people? Other employees that saw this and told the right people, and something was done about it. We sat here, you sat here at the last meeting, and you voted to accept an accounting from a school superintendent that he was going to close that he was going to save $1.76 million operating the Snowden School by closing it, when in fact that was the total cost of operating the school. And I asked for an accounting, but you had a policy that you didn't want to look into it. So you supported the fraud. So yes, stands right.
Yeah, I still ain't got that title search yet. Still haven't gotten that title search yet. You guys voted that I not get it.
You said in here one night that you were smart enough that you could do it yourself.
That has nothing to do with it. Hood could do it himself. I could do it himself. You couldn't do it, but we could do it.
Oh, yeah.
I want
I've
an
done it.
official title insurance.
I've done
I mean,
it.
title search. I want an official one.
Yeah. All right. Okay. All those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. All right. All those opposed? Okay. Now, we're down to the changes in the budget. Who wants to make the first recommendation? Huh? Well, I just opened to page 35 where the general fund was. I'll throw the first one out there. Anita put together, I got asked by two of the school board members how much money could be moved from capital to operating in this proposed budget. And she prepared the handout and was given, and that number was $75,383. As you know, the other money is obligated because of North Carolina statute. My recommendation is that we move the $75,383 from capital to operating.
Why? Why do they need more money in operating than they do in capital?
If they keep all the teachers and assistants, the 67 employees that was on their sheet, they need, I think it was it two?
I think through attrition, they've got that down to 50 now, but you got big classrooms with one teacher in control. And in the elementary schools, when a kid has an accident or something like that, that teacher's taken out of action, and you've got all those kids in there that doesn't have a teacher's assistance, and that's some of this money goes to teacher's assistants. Very important in schools, all schools, not just Beaufort County. So that's one thing that I would like to see worked on. I'll vote for any money that goes away from capital into the ability to pay teachers' assistants.
Have we got a list of those 67 jobs that we're talking about anywhere?
Not the individuals, it's just the total.
Where, but do we have it? I mean, where, in what form?
I think it keeps changing. It's anywhere from custodians to teachers' assistants. I think there's about 7 or 9 of them, seems like. But they've got it down to 55, and that's through attrition. People have, this time of year, people are in motion. They're coming and they're going, or they're saying they're going to come and go. You don't really know till it's they're gone. So it's hard to come up with a list exactly.
Well, I asked back 5 or 6 months ago and was told I would have it. It's another thing that I'm finding that this school superintendent, one of the games he plays, has asked me for information. You're not going to get it, because I'm waiting on information now from him, and I'm pretty sure I'm not going to get it.
I think the answers he had the other day were just beautiful, and a lot of that went viral, and little clippets of it have shown up throughout social media, and I really think he did a good job of answering your questions.
Gee, I think he did.
Answer mine.
I didn't answer any questions for me. He gave some smart-ass answers that might appeal to some people, but they don't. He didn't really answer any questions, because what I'd asked for was a listing of how many teachers are paid for by Beaufort County in the school system, how many assistants are paid for by Beaufort County taxpayers in the school system, and he's failed to produce any information that involves accounting at all whatsoever from his system. So we don't know what's going on over there. The truth be known, there's not a commissioner that can sit here and tell you that he has any inkling or any idea of how the county school system is staffed in any way. How many are paid by the state? Because he took credit for $1.4 million of savings at Snowden that the state pays for, but he's saving us the money. That money follows the student. I mean, I have some serious problems with the accounting that's coming out of the Beaufort County school system. And I also understand how many budget meetings. One of the questions I'd like for the manager to find out before we have our next meeting is how many budget sessions actually examining budget numbers has the school board met with this year? Because what I understand is there are none. That he threw a budget up and they approved it and that was it, and nobody examined anything. So you've got some serious problems here that require some accounting answers that are not being provided. And you guys need to understand that every time I've asked for accounting information and it's been denied, it's turned out that I have been right. I'm pretty sure I'm right again this time, because what I see coming from the school system are accounting reports that the people that are presenting them know nothing about accounting.
I don't remember hearing anybody tell you could not have that information. I really don't.
I asked for it, I don't have it. That's the answer, Randy. Figure it out. Figure it out. If you ask for it and you don't get it, what's the answer? You can't have it because we're not giving it to you. Don't sit over there and with piety and pretend that somehow Hood's done something wrong. He used the wrong pronoun when he asked for the report, so he's not going to get it.
I didn't suggest that at all.
That's what you were doing.
No, you're putting words in my mouth.
Okay.
Okay, let's get back to the recommendation. Anybody opposed to moving that from capital to operating?
Well, I'm opposed because there's no reason that's been presented to do it.
Okay. All right. Well, we got a motion on the floor. How about we vote? All those in favor of making the change, raise your right hand.
Making the change to 75?
Yeah, going from capital to operating.
Absolutely.
No, because we haven't produced any records.
Okay, all those opposed? All right.
Save some jobs there. Thank you.
So spending public money saves jobs.
And that's what we're supposed to be doing.
That's what we're supposed to do. That's fraud.
Okay. All right. You got that, Anita?
Yes, sir.
All right. Nay. And I don't know how many people actually had a chance to look at the spreadsheet that I emailed to each one of you.
I did.
Under the school board,
I didn't get it.
huh?
I couldn't download it.
You couldn't?
I couldn't download it on my.
Okay.
Well, here, you can look at that.
All right, under the school budget summary, if you look at the number of students that they're projecting for 26, 5,320, the money that we just agreed to move would allow them, or the local funding would come up to $3,048 per student. Last year, based on the number of students that they had, our local funding amounted to $2,943. So the increase on a per student basis for operating purposes would be 3.6%. And that's just for information purposes. So if you're having problems trying to download it, let me know, and I'll send you another one or get Katie to send it.
I have a point of order question. We're,
Yes.
we're not putting this stuff up on the for everybody to see, and especially us. This, we're not gonna do that this year?
What's that?
The spreadsheet.
The spreadsheet.
Brandon, can you pull up the spreadsheet, please?
Okay.
There you go.
All right, does anybody have another recommendation on the budget? All right, I'll go with the second one. The second one I'm recommending is in the EMS portion of the budget. There was one in there on employee development, and that's for the advanced training. That's where we would pick up the tuition for ones that went from an EMT to a paramedic, and I know there's some other, but the end result was trying to get more paramedics and get them to stay here, and the county would fund that tuition, and the employee would sign a contract to stay here an extra, Chris helped me, 2 years?
Depends on what class we're going for and how much money we have to
Okay,
for 1 to 2 years.
right. So that's my motion, is to add that to the budget that the manager supplied. All right. All those in favor, raise your right hand.
You still need me up.
Okay. Those opposed? Okay. All right. Okay, the next one is, well, I don't want to keep going through if somebody's got one that they want to put on the table. But I've got a list that I put together.
Continue.
Okay, this one's in the sheriff's office, and the request was to add, I think it was 3 bailiffs, and my recommendation is that we add 1, and it has an offset of $100,000 on the insurance saving. And is that on the health insurance for the detention center, for the people inside the detention center? Okay. Those in favor of the adding 1 to the budget?
1 bailiff to the budget?
Yes.
I'd like to hear an explanation of why we need to add 1 to the budget.
Well, there was a study done based on the security, and they made their presentation the other night, and I think, Gary, was it 3 that they recommended?
They recommended more, but we thought we could accomplish what we needed to on our end with the read.
Well, Gary, maybe you can explain what the benefit is of the bailiff that sits in the foyer of the courthouse every day. What are we accomplishing with that?
So as we discussed, that Allied is unarmed security for the courthouse. They have security for the courthouse. And we don't have anyone in the foyer or in the basement where they come through a metal detector that's armed to stop an armed threat. So our purpose for placing a deputy on the second floor at the metal detectors is if someone was to come in armed and try to hurt others inside of the courthouse, that we could stop them there.
Do we still do screening at the head of the stairs during court time before people go into a courtroom?
They come in a metal detector at the front door
That's,
with unarmed officers that from Allied.
there's no other screening when after they hit that front door until they're sitting in the courtroom?
No, sir.
None?
None.
Okay.
Thank you, Gary.
Yes, sir.
Did you have a question, Tandy? Okay. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Thank you. Okay, under outside agencies, the Boys and Girls Club, I'm making a recommendation that we increase that by 13,000 and make it the total of 40,000 that we had in the previous budgets. All those in favor?
Whoa, let's discuss that a little bit.
Okay.
The reason that was reduced was these people abandoned their contract in the town of Bellhaven. That's where that 1316, it was a third of 40,000 is what we reduced them. Why would we reward bad behavior by giving them the money back?
Well, I think the need is there. You can call it bad behavior. I think the thing that I was disappointed on was the way it was handled. I don't think that changes the need.
Are there different people in charge now? No, yes?
But you got, are you going to be making a motion to fund Bellhaven
Yes.
with the same thing? Well, see, you're increasing taxes and expense right there, and rewarding bad behavior for doing this. Those people are not going to see any more students do any more with the 40,000 than they would with what we've got proposed in the budget. Because in Washington, they were handling so many students a year, making so much opportunity available a year. There's going to be no more opportunity made available. They abandoned their contract in Bellhaven, and you're proposing to give them a reward for that.
Okay. Anyone else? All those in favor of increasing it back up to the 40,000, which is an increase of 13,334 in the manager's budget, raise your right hand.
I can't vote on that.
You can't?
No.
That's right.
Okay.
I'm honest.
All right. Those opposed? All right.
Failed.
At least you're honest. Okay, the Bellhaven Mattress School, that one in the original budget or the manager's budget was like 13,000. My recommendation is to increase that one 6,666 to a total of 20,000. All those in...
Well, but that's the point of discussion here. I can vote for a motion after this one, hopefully it fails, to give them the 13,000 that was in the original budget. That doesn't increase anything, but I'm not going to vote for a budget to improve what we were
Well,
donating to them.
it stays in the budget. 13,000 stays in the
Well, if it
budget.
stays in the budget, then I hope this one fails.
Okay. All right. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Okay. All right, under the BHM library, there was a request in there to increase the wages for the clerks that operate on a part-time basis at the various libraries in Beaufort County, and their request was for $3,250, and that's the one where they said the average salary was, I think, $8 an hour. Those in favor of that, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Okay. Okay, the next one is the senior center. As you remember, last year, we got hit sideways by the city with a change in the way they were operating and treating the people outside in the county. And of course, you can see they've asked for a larger amount this year. And my recommendation is that we go from 20,000 to 50,000, which will be an increase of 30,000.
What do they ask for?
It was 300 and some, I think it was. Hold on just a second.
More to what they're budgeting themselves.
Well, they got capital in there of 221,000, or it's 200,000. But they're asking for 74% of their operating.
What are they gonna do?
Fine.
It's so expensive with capital.
I don't know.
Well, why won't we vote for it?
Well,
I mean, we're sitting here, plenty of time to read this bill after you vote for it, folks.
no, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about giving them some more to reduce the cost for our county people that go there.
Are they gonna reduce the county employees, the county's portion that they pay now? They're going back to it?
I don't know.
Then we don't need to be voting for stuff that we don't know about.
Pursuant to what Hood was just talking about, have you got an operating plan, an oversight plan with the senior center?
Just what's in our book.
Okay, I wouldn't know then. We're not
Just what's
supposed
in
to
our
be doing
book.
this without an oversight plan.
Okay, all those in favor of adding an additional 30,000 to the senior center to help cover the cost of our county employees that go to the senior center here in Washington?
County residents.
County residents, okay? All those in favor, raise your right hand.
Can I have a question for you?
Yes, yeah.
Can you find out if the fees gonna stay the same? Now, we're not helping our county residents if the fees stay the same. I mean, would we be helping them? I mean, if you get a $30,000 increase, then the fees ought to decrease on county residents or go like they're on everybody. Have you heard that?
No, not
I
her.
like one size fits all.
Okay,
I'd like to reiterate one thing that I say every year. This is what cities do. It's not like they administer any major services. They sweep streets, they pick up trash, and this is what they do. They provide services to their residents and the people around them, so they'll come to the towns and spend money, and then they get the sales tax dollars.
well, here,
And then also the people that on Main Street and some of the other places that we have commerce, they get the benefits as well.
okay, here again, this is just a policy decision. I can tell you last year I got calls from, on the northeast area of the county that said, consider giving them more. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to assist my senior citizen.
Can we restrict our money and not have it include capital?
Yes, that it goes strictly for operating money.
I don't see where we should put money into a building we don't own.
Oh, I agree.
Then can I add that?
Yes,
Then I'd like to add that.
yes. But I think we'd want to make sure that all of it is operating for operating
Right.
purposes.
Then how are you going to administer the oversight, knowing which way it goes? Does it go to the administration of their services or the building? How are you going to know? If you're not going to know, if you're not going to try to know, how are you going to know?
They're gonna give us a report.
And you're going to trust every word they say. The city of Washington, you're going to trust every word they say.
Okay, gentlemen, all those in favor of 30,000 additional money for operating purposes?
Are we gonna find out about Ed's request?
Yeah.
About
Well,
the-
I'm pleased if you can do it for operation. I mean, it should give our outside residents some relief.
Right,
I'm pleased with your motion.
okay.
Okay. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed? All right.
What's that, even?
Yeah. Yeah. 33. You could smile. Okay, and my last one here is I'm asking us to consider removing agape funding from the budget of 25,000, which is in there. with the growth that they had and the revenue streams that they have now, I really do not see why we should be putting $25,000 into their funds.
I have to agree with you on that one. But I agree on all of them that we don't do them. But this one's particularly, I would agree with that.
Okay, all those in favor of taking away the funding for Agape of $25,000, raise your right hand.
I mean, after all, we already
Those
gave them,
opposed?
we already gave them 700 and something thousand.
Okay, gentlemen, that's all I have now.
I wanna go back to something.
Yes.
What was it? The bailiff,
Yes.
I wanna know is, where's that bailiff gonna be stationed?
Well, it didn't make it under a straw vote, so.
Well, I can bring it back up since I was on the winning side. I think that's what our policy says.
Right.
That's what our policy says.
Okay.
If approved, he could be stationed on the second floor or in the basement where they first come in, or doing regular bailiff duties, whichever
The
one.
one on the second floor now.
That one on the second floor isn't a bailiff. That one on the second floor is one we're using out of the office, whether it's a criminal investigator, a drug investigator, or admin, or
What you're
overtime.
saying now, there's two, there will be two one at the basement and one on the second floor at all times. That's what you're saying now.
No, sir. The one that's on the second floor right now, we're either paying overtime for, or it's an investigator that we have just said that we've got to have one there. That's not a bailiff position. There's no position there. So if we were to get a bailiff position, we could put them there, or we could put them in the basement and still use someone from overtime on the second floor. Our whole ultimate goal is to try to secure the courtrooms as much as we could.
So this was a overtime position on the second floor.
It is an overtime. We use overtime for it, but we also use criminal investigators, drug investigators, and others for it also.
Okay. Well, how's the overtime calculated? I mean, they ain't investigating all day, all night, are they?
The time they're in that second floor position, they're not able to work on the cases they already have, following up with those cases, calling witnesses, doing interviews. Same thing with the drug investigators.
Okay.
But we do use some overtime positions, but we can't use it all the time because we got to manage our overtime as well.
Okay. I'll change my vote. I'll vote in favor of the one position.
You vote to add the position.
Yes, the one position.
What was that vote?
It would be 3-3, but if the chairman wants to call it again, then you'll know.
Okay, let's vote again on adding the one bailiff after the explanation and after your question. Okay, all those in favor of adding one bailiff to the budget, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Okay. All right. Who's next?
There's one thing I'd like to see concerning the schools. I'd like to see an agenda item be placed every month, just like we do with the legislative and public comments, stuff like that. But and let's call it school funding, and where they can come in and they know that they have a place that they can come in at a moment's notice if they have a need, and they can come in and ask us or explain to us why they need this money. And a good example would be there is a tremendous problem out at Washington High School with moisture, and you've got water running down the walls right now. And I'd like to see them come back to us with some figures on a dehumidifier for the rooms that would vent out into the outside and get the moisture out of there. And so, but I think we need to kind of look at things with the schools as with a pay-as-you-go sort of thing, and is if they come up with something that they need fund, and they haven't been coming to us. I mean, they've been picking up the tab themselves, so we've learned. So I'd like to see us be able to have more of a inline where they come in and request things and have that open monthly.
Would that be a capital expense?
Wouldn't be any expense.
Well, no.
Oh, well, you're talking about are you talking about getting rid of the moisture?
Yeah, that's capital.
Well, that's a capital expense because on the building.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman? Yes.
The manager.
Yes, Brian.
So, Mr. Chairman, just Commissioner Walker, I hear clearly what you're saying. The school can come to us at any time before a meeting as long as they come in time to get on the agenda. If you were to make a standing agenda item for them, it would push them back a month anyway, because we would never say to you, okay, yeah, spend that money without us being able to research it, understand it, figure out where the money's coming from. So it would push them to the next month anyway. So if they need to do that, they just need to call us and say, we'd like to get put on the agenda for a request for funding or something.
Well, it seems like a lot of stuff in Raleigh right now that's it sounds encouraging as far as some decisions that'll be made, but you don't know if it's going to end up in their budget. But a good example would be people that are in our school systems that are going for their master's program, and the school and Raleigh says, okay, you're going to give these people back their master's money, which they took away years ago. They should have never, but they did. But they're talking about bringing that back. Now, if that happens in the middle of the school year, they would need that to be able to come back in here quickly and get that money reimbursement. And so there's a lot of stuff like that that's coming down from Raleigh. I really think our sales tax is going to be better. I really think there's going to be a savings from merging these schools. And so things like that, I think the schools are going to have a little bit more money than we've been planning on.
So again, I mean, I hear you, and your budget to the schools can be amended anytime a majority of the board wants to amend it. I would say to you, you can't use restricted sales tax for the additional certifications, because that's operating, not capital. But again, I would go back to the point that
some of that's paid out of Title I, so I know you don't have anything to do with that.
But what I would say to you is, again, if the school system walked in at a meeting and said, we want you to give us more money, from the staff's perspective, we would say, we're not going to agree to that. I mean, we wouldn't have a recommendation to offer to you because we wouldn't know anything about it. So it would push them to the next month anyway. So I think
they would come armed with what they're,
I do hear what you're saying. I'm just saying that even if they came armed with all that information, we wouldn't be, the finance officer and I would not be able to make a recommendation to you on what we would say. We would want to research it, look at our funding and say, how would you do this? Then come to you to make a recommendation. We wouldn't be able to make that snap decision right then waiting. We would say, let us look at it. We'll bring it back to you at the next meeting.
Okay.
So,
Well, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I just heard something that's alarming to me. I've sat here over the years and I heard about we need $400,000 to fix the water pressure in Washington High School. And it was a really big deal. And of course, being the engineer, I finally got to the bottom of it. I did it. This board didn't do it. I had to fight all of you. And the problem was that the system was just misdesigned. And we fixed it for a lot less than $400,000 because the school system's in here saying, we want the $400,000. Well, what are you going to use it for? We don't know what we're going to use it for, but we think it'll cost $400,000 to fix this. Well, guess what? When we got done with it, we didn't give them any increase to fix their water pressure problem at Washington High School. Now, I just heard another thing that does not fit with school design at all. And that is there's water running down the walls of the school at Washington High School. When you've got a slab-on-grade building with a heating and air conditioning system in it, which is a dehumidifier, Randy, in case you didn't know. That is a dehumidifier. So What I'm asking is for the school board to come in here and tell us about this tremendous problem that they have out there and what is causing it. Because I have advocated for years that the school system hire themselves an engineer to put in charge of their maintenance programs, because they have a lot of programs that require a facilities engineer skills in order to be able to handle and solve. And they steadfastly refuse to do this, because just like the superintendent does his own appraisals, he doesn't need an appraiser, he does his own accounting. And we see where all of this is going. It's hilarious at the disasters, one after another, that I keep hearing about in the school system. So
What would the engineer cost?
what does an engineer cost? By the time you pay him, do all of his other stuff and everything, you're talking about $200,000 a year. How much is the school budget on we give them $18 million a year. A lot of that is school budget. So he will save you $1 million a year every year that he's there over what you're doing right now, just for having some logical thought into solving problems. And that is not happening. We are using people who have zero skills in solving problems. For instance, in these large schools, these heating and air conditioning systems all have, guess what, year-round hot and cold water running in them at the same time. And it's how that is programmed and managed that has a lot to do with energy savings. I've been in the school at, it's been years ago, but I've been in the school at Northside? Yeah, I guess Northside, where the janitor was running the air conditioning system. Would you let me finish?
Was this 20 years ago?
I'm going to finish what I'm talking about. Where the janitor was running the system, and guess what? It wasn't running. You had 1,300 people in a building, and they were all either freezing to death or sweating to death, one of the two. So the school system steadfastly refuses to use modern technology and modern management methods to solve their problems, and they keep wanting us to pick up the money. And when I, as a commissioner, sit here and an engineer sit here, and here there's water running down the walls of the school, that is masonry walls in that building, and knowing the heating and air conditioning system and the conditions out there, there's something drastically wrong that these people can't solve. They couldn't solve the water pressure problem out there. I had to do it for them. So an engineer, any engineer would be helpful in these situations and would save money, because these situations are complex.
Are you prepared to add that to their budget so we can hire this?
I've offered to add it to their budget every year for 10 years, and they refuse to hire the engineer.
I think it's because they can't find one for the number you're talking about.
Bull crap.
Well,
You don't know what you're talking about.
Well, 2 meetings ago in this very room, it was humid, and he had to manipulate the air condition to get the humidity out of this room.
He's the engineer.
Right. Well, I mean, but still, it happens. And there are teachers at Washington High School that have taken upon themselves to buy a dehumidifier, and it has solved the problem in their room.
I'm telling you, there's a major problem operating the heating and air conditioning system in that school if people are having to buy dehumidifiers.
How would you know you hadn't been in a school in 20 years?
I'm an engineer. I know things. Engineers think different than the rest of you cats.
Does it come to you through osmosis?
Yeah. After you get enough skill in it and have done it for a while, and when you're as old as I am, you have a lot of answers. And I can sit right here and tell you that based on what you're telling me, there's a serious problem in the operation of the heating and air conditioning system at that school, and there's also one at every other school that I know about in Beaufort County.
If you're going to start going back to schools and visiting campuses, I suggest you stay in the teacher's lounge.
Okay.
You got something?
Ed
Yeah.
Hood, will you cut your mic?
As a matter of fact, I didn't get this today. My phone won't do PDF.
Okay.
And if you will allow me, I would love to ask Chris some questions
All right.
on this.
That's on the
On your-
advanced training?
Yeah.
Advanced
Yeah,
training?
I didn't get it. I was gonna.
Okay.
Yeah. Explain to us what this program is.
We're talking about the training incentive
Yes.
for EMS personnel.
Yes.
So, as we have shared in past meetings, it is becoming increasingly difficult for us to recruit and hire EMS providers that have their paramedic certification, so a high-tier provider. And what we have found success in is if we can find someone local or someone who has that lower certification and support them to get an advanced certification, then we do really well with that. And I'll kind of put that in context. I believe I shared in the last meeting from, correct me because I'm not looking at that right now, but from July 1 through March, when we completed system expansion templates, we were trying to fill 8 positions. We posted those positions 11 times. And of those 11 processes, we had 1 paramedic application. We had a bunch of advanced and even more basics. The most frequent application we get is from an EMT basic, so your entry level into EMS. That's the majority of our applications. Next to that is advanced, so they can do some IVs and some medications, but we get very few paramedic. So we recognize that our ability to recruit paramedic providers is becoming increasingly more difficult. Now, the other issue we run into is like a lot of EMS agencies, our employees rely on part-time employment to make financial ends meet. So in order for me, if I was an EMT basic and I had dreams and to become a paramedic, that's a 2-year commitment for me. 18 months if I do it fast, but 2 years. And that means for 2 years, I'm going to be very limited on the part-time work that I can do. So we have providers who have the goal of getting a higher certification, but they cannot do that by stepping away from their part-time job and commit that to class. So what we're asking is the ability to pay that person to go to that class. So we would pay for their time in class, we would pay for their time in clinicals. Depending on what certification they're moving to is the amount of investment that we would have in them. So that could range anywhere from $7,000 to about $28,000. And we base our contract of employment on that. So if it's the biggest investment we would have would be sponsoring a basic to go to a paramedic certification. We would have about $28,000 tied up in that if we paid them to do all their clinical and class hours. Under that scenario, we would ask that employee to work for us for the next 3 years. And if they leave prior to 3 years, then we prorate that money back. So we would tier that based on the investment we have in an employee. But we've got to figure out a way to create higher certification providers in-house because we are not recruiting them.
Well, let me ask this question.
Let me finish.
Wait, oh, I thought you finished.
So how long is this instead of them doing their part-time job, they'll be in class?
That's right.
Okay. And how many semester hours is that? Is it ongoing or?
So it depends on the class. So I can give you some examples from an EMT basic, which is that entry level, to an advanced, which is the tier level. Most community colleges can do that in about 6 months.
Okay.
If you're going from an advanced or an EMT to a paramedic, that's the worst case scenario.
And he's going to stay with you for 3 years and the county recoup that money.
That's correct. We would prorate that based on the amount of money we invest in the employee.
Madam Clerk, what would the vote? I changed my vote.
Did you have a question, Hood?
Well, yeah, the question is, are we reaching too, turn this thing on. The question is, are we reaching too far when we try for 100% staffing of paramedics?
No, I don't think we are, because what we have seen, at least in my tenure here, is we've never been close to 100%. We're probably in the best position now that we've have been, and that's because we had a few employees that got their paramedic. But when we look at that, and again, we're minimally staffed, so we're 9 EMS providers to a shift. 5 of those have to be paramedics. To provide that service on the trucks that we have, 5 of our 9 employees have to be paramedics. If we drop below 5 per shift, then we're sacrificing a service. Then one truck's not going to be staffed at what the others are. So, do we have to have 100%? Absolutely, absolutely not. But we need that 3/4 to 80%. And that's on a good day when we don't have anyone sick or when we don't have anyone on vacation. When we have one sick and on vacation and we're pulling overtime to fill that position, then you put us in that operational crutch of, well, is the personal mandatory a paramedic and can I use them? Or are we having to downstaff our service? And kind of goes back to what we talked about the other night. When we start talking about staffing levels and certification levels, there are a lot of ripples in that water with EMS and the level of service we provide. And we've got to address that.
You'll be growing your own, and I think that's a good way to go.
We have our best retention from local, from employees who are local to the area, who want to stay and serve in the community that they live in. And we're asking for the opportunity and bettering themselves.
Okay, we'll take another vote. All those in favor of the employment development addition to the EMS budget with a cost of $37,500 for advancement training, raise your right hand. And those opposed?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, Tandy.
Mr. County Manager, what do we do with lapsed salaries?
So we fund all of our positions at full salary. We don't play the game where we say 90%, 80%. We fund everybody fully because part of it is, and I'm going the wrong way, sorry. Part of it is the finance officer's got to be able to pre-audit the budget to say, because, it would be the one year that we didn't have anybody leave, that everybody stayed, and then we didn't have enough money. Typically, lapsed salaries roll to fund balance at the end of the year. They may be used to help make up some issues that we may have in a department, like if we have somebody leave and we have to pay out their vacation, or we have somebody retire and we have to pay it out. That might be used to help offset that. But normally, it would roll to fund balance.
So being I'm new, what do we do with fund balance?
It's whatever is revenues over expenditures at the end of the year.
So is there any way to take lapsed salaries and put it in a fund to fund things like this, or for the additional bailiff positions or the additional paramedic position? You kind of like restricted fund it?
Yes, so the challenge with that is it's one-time money at the end of the year. Everything that rolls to fund balance at the end of the year is one-time money. So, because you don't know, because we anticipate that every position is going to be full for the entire year, so we fund it that way. And it may not always be that way, but again, it comes back to us. It would be that one year that it did, and then we wouldn't have them if we dropped it. Some places do. To your credit, what you're saying, some places do. They say, we know we're going to have some lapsed salaries, so we budget 90% of the total salary. We don't budget 100%. I've never done that. I've always budgeted 100% salary just because we want to make sure we got everything covered. Could you set it aside? It wouldn't work to set it aside because it wouldn't be a recurring number. Because if you funded something like that, I anticipate it would be on a recurring basis. So then you would have to find it. So you would look to do away with something or find a recurring revenue stream.
Thank you.
But I have a question in the same line.
Yes.
But in lapsed salaries, and I'm not sure what we do, so take this as a question. Can you reappropriate lapsed salaries during the year to something else, and how is that done?
You can, but typically we're at the end of the fiscal year when we wrap stuff up, when we're doing adjustments to make sure everything's balanced out at the end of the year. So you're saying it would be hard to say because you don't know when it lapses.
Well, let's take the sheriff's department as an example. Historically, not currently, but in the past, he'd have 4 or 5 positions that he could not fill, and you're halfway through the year. So if you got 4 positions, now we've got 2 full-time pay positions equivalency of money laying there as a lapsed salary. Do we have any policy to reappropriate that money for another use?
We don't. I mean, we wouldn't say, I mean, we would use those funds to, if, at the end of the year, if we needed to, because it's in that budget, we would use it to make sure that it, well, not in the sheriff's office, because the sheriff's office is different. Y'all have it set up differently in the sheriff's office. Remember, you have salary set and then operating set, so you can't exceed either one.
Yeah.
But like in a regular department where we have the authority to move money within the department to cover everything, so if there were some over expenditures on something that happened, yeah, we would, because we look at the very bottom line, we look at the bottom of that budget to
Right.
see, are they over or not?
Use that to balance the budget.
You could, we'd have to balance the budget, so yes.
But we don't have a policy that if a department happens to accumulate so much in lapsed salaries, all of a sudden they can take and use it for something else?
No. That would only be something we would do from the finance perspective. The department heads would not have the ability to do that. We would use it to balance out at the end of the year to make sure we don't exceed the budget ordinance.
Okay.
And can I add something to that? And the board approves that. Anytime I've transferred money like that, the board does approve that. And we actually, earlier this year, about 3 meetings ago, we used $75,000 of lapsed salary and benefit money and moved it down to facilities for some repairs and maintenance items that Christina requested. So you did approve that. I think it was a 7-0 vote.
And we don't do use it or lose it either.
Oh, absolutely not, and that's something that we talk about in the budget. That's one of our goals that we talk to our folks about, and we have that conversation with them. If we find something in a line item that was estimated too high one year, I mean, we don't take everything away from them because they may need a little bit, but it is absolutely not, and we make sure people don't, the last week of June, we cut off spending early so that people can't do that, and we watch that. We don't operate like state government, we don't operate like federal government.
Well, anybody else got anything to add or take away from the budget? Yes.
I was looking at the employees' 401 contribution. I would love to see us increase that. I mean, it would benefit, with the way things are going and people are hiring outside of the county and giving increase outside the county. I understand that LEO gets 5%. I would love if the manager or the finance clerk would explain what would be the impact if we would make that offer to our employees.
So I think that's in your, if you'll go to...
221.
221, yes, sir. So we've given this one to you for the last couple of years. And again, this one is something we really can't put a hard finger on because some people may participate, some people may not. What we've said is the state of North Carolina, the general statutes require you as a county to put 5% in law enforcement in their 401k. They do not have to participate at all. Law enforcement does not. That is something the General Assembly said, you will do that. What we've put in there is to say, at least do the same for county employees, do 5% for them as well. However, make the county employees match it. So for them to get 5%, for them to get 4%, they would have to put at least 4% in. So we're saying at least do the 5 like you're doing, like you have to do for law enforcement, but say to the county employees, the general county employees, we recognize that, but we're also going to make you participate as well. So the only way we're going to give it to you is if you match it. And we really don't know how many people would do that. You would hope that everybody would. You would hope that everybody would be in a position to do that. Some people may not be. So we ran it at 5%. You'll see under general fund, it's over $500,000, 43,000 in water and 1,300 in solid waste. That's assuming that everybody who currently doesn't do it does it at the full 5%, which it wouldn't be.
But it's on a volunteer basis if they want. It's on a volunteer basis if they want to participate.
Correct. And it's the way, you actually have a little bit of that program right now. Now, the board has it set up so that if a general county employee contributes up to 2%, the county contributes up to 2%. We would take the exact same, this proposal would take the exact same thing and bump it to 5.
Okay. Mr. Chair, for a minute, I would like to add that too.
Okay. you want to give us what the cost is? Is that
That's what
532,842?
100% is.
It looks like 577.
So, Mr. Chairman, in general, I mean, I would assume that if you did this, if you voted to do this, you would include general fund, water fund, and solid waste, so it would be everything. So the impact that we have calculated, a full 5% for everybody, is 532,842 in general fund, 43,192 to the water fund, and 1316 to the solid waste fund.
But in the budget, the where we're working on right now would be 532.
For the general fund, yes, sir.
Okay. I mean, I would like to do it, but because it's reoccurring, technically it should come with a tax increase, which would take a half a penny with the new valuation.
I mean, these numbers are not, you're not gonna have 100% participation. It's volunteer. I mean, if they wanna, everybody's not gonna do it. And I think, Mr. Manager, if I'm correct, in these numbers that you just spoke, law enforcement was included in it also, or were they not? That was just the rest of the employees.
That's just everybody else, because law enforcement gets it no matter what, and they don't have to contribute.
Yeah.
Some do, some may not. I don't know what the exact numbers are on LEO participation.
I still make that motion.
Okay. We got the motion. Anybody have a question? All right, all those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. Those opposed?
Mr. Chairman, I have
One item. Yes.
The Highway 13 Transportation Association is asking for an additional $5,000. That's all.
I mean, unless you want to give it to them. They don't need it.
They don't need it? If they don't need it, they don't get it.
I have a meeting in the morning, should I tell them this?
I'm actually the treasurer of the organization.
Oh, okay.
I would tell you that Beaufort can, and I would say that to them because they ask us that every year. They say, will you give us $5,000 more? Beaufort County is one of the leading contributors to that organization, and some other folks got to step up before. I mean, we put it in.
That's right. It's always been a problem.
We put it in because they asked for it, because that's the way we do the search expansions, but I don't support it, and would tell you I don't support it, and I would tell the Highway 17 Association, unless you get other folks participating more heavily, you're lucky to get what you get from Beaufort County. So.
Yeah, the lobbying that they do is important to getting these roads paved, so that was the reason that I was for it. But I also understand over the years that we have borne most of the burden on that.
Yes.
Anyone else? Anita, are you ready to give us a recap of where we are?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, we had a bunch of votes, but only a handful that passed. I'll just go over the things that actually changed. So we are moving $75,383 from school capital and allocating that to school operations. So that's a net zero effect on our budget. We are adding $37,500 for an EMS employee training program. We are adding $3,250 for a rate increase for part-time employees at BHM, and we're deducting $25,000 from Agape for their annual funding. And I am showing that all of these items, with the exception of the schools, will be recurring in future years beyond next year's budget. In other words, we'll continue the training program for EMS. The part-time raises obviously would continue, and I'm assuming the Agape deduction is perpetual as well. So having said all that, that gives you a new revenue total of $76,991,242, which was a difference of $15,750 from revenues. So I've looked at revenues, and I feel like out of a $2.7 million revenue item, I could squeeze that money out of investment earnings.
Which is $15,750.
Yes, so I have balanced the budget by adding $15,750 in additional investment earnings, bringing your new total budget to $76,991,242.
Okay. Any questions on that? So, I mean, the, no reduction in the fund balance, no tax increase.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So do you want us to draft up, or do you want us to put together a draft ordinance for the board's consideration after the public hearing, based on these numbers? I mean, typically that's what we do. I just want to make sure.
Well, would,
It's still changed, it still changes.
yeah.
So I think go ahead and do it.
Okay.
Do we need to vote on that, Katie?
Nope.
Okay. So we'll have the public hearing, and we'll, on June the 2nd, we'll vote on this proposed budget.
The public hearing is June 2nd. I put it in the newspaper for that day.
Okay. Do you see us having to have that June the 9th meeting to adopt a budget?
That's up to you guys.
Depends on what we do on June the 2nd.
Okay. I guess you told us. Okay.
Can I ask you another question?
Yes.
Mr. Manager, I know it failed, and because of that 5% that 401K. Could you put together some numbers if we get half of that or something like that? And
So I think the finance officer can probably in her head give you what 1% is.
yeah. Well, maybe we had to.
I mean, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, maybe we got,
Going from 2 to 3?
yeah,
maybe?
maybe we got to piecemeal it to death already.
Sneak up on.
I'm not
I
in
don't
a
have
hurry
that in my
for.
head, but give me,
That's all right.
all I
can
need is 20 seconds.
take the time.
So we can
adjourn.
Brandon, we'll take about a 5-minute break. Ed says he'd like for us to consider it on Monday night and as a change, and I'm sure we may have some other changes since Jerry's not here. Give us what it is for 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5%, like,
This is it. That's it.
yeah. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, fine.
Okay. Do you need this back?
No, what I can tell you is every 1% is about $106,000. So if you do 2%, just take the 106,000 times 2, so forth, 3%, 106 times 3, and so forth. Now again, that is assuming that there's 100% participation by all non-Leo county employees and that they contribute the max, which we know will not be the case. So to get a really accurate number, you'd have to probably poll employees to see what they would contribute, but that's a worst case scenario, I guess, as far as 100% contribution, yeah. That's the biggest expense that it would be, in other words.
Do we want to see if there's any changes in the water? We'll ask the commissioners.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you have any, I mean, this is the time to talk about that.
The only expansion we had in water was for the 401K. There are some expansions in solid waste that were presented.
Okay. Let's go to the solid waste. What pages are they on? 344, is that the full-time?
Solid waste starts on page 2. Well, actually, the expansion would be in the back.
341.
There we go.
Okay, since we are gonna be probably talking about the 401 on Monday night. Would it be better if we just wait on that?
I mean, our assumption would be that if you did it for general fund, you would do it for
Okay.
the other funds as well.
Okay. So what we're looking at is the solid waste, another collection, like we've had, another day.
Correct. So you currently do one, and you'd be doing 2 a year.
Household collection days.
Yes.
And then the solid waste enforcement officer, that was already in there, wasn't it?
So it was in as a part-time position, and this is proposing to take it to a full-time position.
Have we voted to take it to a full-time position yet?
No.
No, that was part of the search expansion, if you wanted to consider that, and it would be a 51,953 recurring. So
What would that do to our fee structure, annual fee, solid waste fee? Wes, you got that number? You got it, okay.
So right off the top of my head, I believe we bill right at 27,000 accounts. So for every dollar you increase the fee, you generate about $27,000 annually.
So we're looking at $2 in the fee to
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
make that a full-time position. Well, we're not getting anywhere.
Yeah,
We're not getting anywhere, so.
it's gonna work with somebody, but we gotta get somebody to make it work.
So, and there's also some potential revenue offset for that. I mean, we talked a little bit about some revenue offset, and that revenue offset was from the current part-time. But there could be some potential offset, I mean, if you're finding folks and doing those kind of things.
Well, we're on 341 right now, under the solid waste.
Would there be any special equipment for the full-time solid waste enforcement officer?
Not beyond what's already planned for the part-time, that we just need a vehicle. We've already purchased a computer off of this year's budget.
I mean, he wouldn't have a truck with a claw to just grab it and... Yeah, it would be.
Well, we keep talking about it, we all get telephone calls, we get, and the sign off, I mean, it's trash, trash, trash. And I think, I think if we're gonna do anything, we need to try it. We need to try it.
So, I mean, I'm just saying, I agree, I just don't think we have the capacity to be able to do it without somebody.
Dedicated.
If you want to make a dent in this problem, we got to have a resource to go after it, and I think this helps.
And I think it was kind of key to, we're going to additional disposal of mobile homes, some other things that are going to need enforcement, and the thinking was that, yeah, as we moved into that this would naturally become a full-time position.
Yes, we have drafts of those that we're still working on, the junk vehicles, the abandoned mobile homes. Again, you all have already approved the additional language for the solid waste ordinance that will go into effect July 1st that will add to the responsibilities of this person. We have had minimal interest.
Okay, if we make that a full-time position and we also add one more hazardous waste day, does that mean $3? I mean, you said $1 creates 27, and Wes has got down here 20,000 for reoccurring. So, what help me, because I'm having a senior minute. What would that put us up to if we did both of those on an annual basis? It's at one.
You're talking about the household rate.
The solid waste fee.
Household rate.
We recommended 193, so it would go to 196.
196 would cover both items.
Yes, sir.
Well, I'll
Full-time position too.
yeah,
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
I think it's gotta happen.
I'll make that motion that we add those two and increase the fee to 196. Okay? All those in favor of that, raise your right hand.
I ain't crazy about it. Be up front, I ain't crazy about it.
Ashley, have you got your camera? Can you take a picture of this? Huh? Huh?
I ain't crazy about it.
Well, I think most of us, half of our telephone calls was related to solid waste. So,
And drive down River Road.
was there anything else we need to cover?
I'd like to go back to one item.
Okay.
I know everybody, it's on page 223. I know everybody gonna look at me funny when I do this, but our Board of Election Director, I'd make a motion that we make that reclassification. Don't y'all hit me now.
I agree with you, Ed.
I want to say this, related to this. You can, if you raise that salary to that amount, she's ready, can retire. And she retires, and then you're going to find somebody else that's going to be nowhere nearly as competent and effective and work as hard as this person does. I don't have a problem with doing this, and this is going to sound kind of funny from a personnel standpoint, providing Kelly stays here. I do have a problem with doing it and she leaves.
I don't think she'll leave.
Well, we're doing the position, so I
Well, I understand.
don't think there's any way that you
But you got an entry
can.
level to come in though, right?
Well, yeah, they would come in lower than
Yeah,
entry level,
yeah, they come in lower.
but still, you boosted things a lot.
I think it.
They might keep her here.
I think it could also help
Yeah,
in
true.
the recruitment of getting somebody that's experienced.
Well, they say it's work that not everybody wants to do.
Well, this is hoping Kelly will stay.
Maybe we get illegal to take it over or something.
Yeah, that's my motion.
Right. It ain't the Biden administration any longer.
Okay, we got a motion. Can we back up, Anita?
Sorry, what do you need?
Can we back up on your budget spreadsheet?
Oh, yes, I mean, if Brandon wants to pull it up.
Okay. The motion's on the floor to change the classification.
Question.
Yes,
So
yes.
I just got to say this, and it's the board's decision, absolutely, but this position was not studied. So MAPS didn't study this position, we didn't study this position. This was a recommendation that you got from the Board of Elections that came from the State Board of Elections, just so we're clear on that.
Okay.
Well, okay, when you say it wasn't studied, I mean, there could be some conflicts developed from this. Would it be reasonable for you guys in this short period of time to give us some information Monday night if needed?
I couldn't do it that fast, I mean, because the MAPS group goes out and looks at, they essentially survey and look around, so.
Okay.
So I wouldn't be able to do that quick for you, sorry.
I looked at it, Craven County and Pitt County, and that position is lower than those two counties.
Okay. All right, all of those, you made the motion?
Yes.
All right, all those in favor of the reclassification from a 73 to a 76, for a total of $14,944. That's benefits and salary. Raise your right hand. Was it unanimous? Just wanted to make sure I didn't have to ask for those to opposed. Madam Clerk, is there anything else, or,
We got to have a revenue offset, hang on.
okay.
So with the boards, I mean, we're saying we'll do fund balance appropriated for that amount, and just have to find it next year as a recurring revenue stream.
Any way you work it out.
I'm fine with that. You got anything else, Brian? Anita, Katie? Anything else from other board members? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn our workshops. What is, we got a motion. I'll second the motion. All those in favor of adjourning our workshops, raise your right hand. Thank you.